Hello everyone, Mason here. How are you doing? Welcome to day 4 of the Tag Marathon. Can you adapt it? This one was originally created by Raul Reads. The link to that video is in the description. I've been quite excited to tackle this one. It seems fun and inventive. As the title implies, it's all about adaptations. So let's get to it. What is your favourite book adaptation? I have 3 answers for these. The first one is pretty obvious. As someone that's a massive fan of the trilogy, the Lord of the Rings films are some of my favourite films of all time. I just don't feel like they got anything wrong. The casting was spot on. Those beautiful sweeping shots of the landscape and the battle scenes. I'm not someone that's massively into action movies, but the adrenaline of watching the Battle of Helm's Deep play out before me is something that I'll never forget. As for TV, Bones and Bates Motel are 2 of my favourite TV shows of all time. When it comes to Bones, I just love everything about it. The actors do a superb job. I love that there's the standard crime of the week, but when they decide to ramp up the tension and give you a dramatic episode, when there's a serial killer involved, it's perfect. The first episode that features the gravedigger comes really early in the show's run, and it's just genuinely tense, one of the best episodes of a TV show that I can remember. I also love that they weren't afraid to make hard decisions with that show. The few times they kill off a character, it's always so emotional, and that last episode that wraps everything up is so dramatic, and I cried like a baby. As for Bates Motel, that show is just absolute genius. As someone that's never watched Psycho, it was so fascinating to see the story unfold. It's just one of those shows that you can sit down, binge, and lose an entire weekend. Freddie Highmore and Vera Farmiga as Norman and Norma are just superb. Their on-screen chemistry is fantastic, and the dynamic of the characters is so weird and fascinating. In fact, it's so good that talking about it is making me want to rewatch it again soon, and I don't even think it's been that long since I watched it last time, maybe a year or so? What is your least favourite adaptation? I genuinely wasn't sure what my answer for this question was going to be until just a few short days ago I looked at my Facebook memories and saw my past self having a rant about it. I had completely forgotten that it existed, deleted it from my brain entirely, and I wish it had stayed that way because now that I remember it, I'm mad about it all over again. It's the piece of shit that was the Cirque du Freak film, The Vampire's Assistant. The Saga of Darren Shan is such a good series. It's one of my favourites. It's a great, original, young adult take on the vampire trope with world building, an actual fleshed out vampire culture, interesting characters, dark, horrific themes, emotional twists and turns. Then the film was this gimmicky, sanitised mess that leaned into the comedy to try and appeal to a mainstream audience, which was stupid. It just came at the wrong time, too early, during a period where Hollywood was trying to draw in that young adult audience and capitalise on the success of the Harry Potter series. I genuinely think that if it was adapted today, they'd do a much better job of it. The books are all short and digestible. I think the Audible versions are like 4.5 hours long each. I think someone like Netflix could do an incredible job with them these days. The books aren't comedic, they're actually quite heartbreaking at times. Darren makes a bad decision and has to leave his whole life behind, and some of the stuff that he endures throughout the series is just horrible. Why are they trying to lean into the comedy? I just don't know, it makes no sense to me. If you could adapt any book, which one would it be? This won't come as a surprise to any channel regulars, since I've been giving this series such glowing reviews, but oh man, if I could get Netflix to pick up the Tom Douglas series by Rachel Abbott, that'd be amazing. I think if each season was made up of 6 40-minute episodes, that'd be perfect. There's 10 books, so that's 10 seasons just waiting to happen, and each book covers an entirely different case, so each season would have a different vibe. As long as they nailed the casting for Tom and Becky, I think they'd be on to a winner. Because each season would more or less require an entirely new cast, it'd give some lesser known British actors a chance to show off their skills, and the Greater Manchester setting would be refreshing and different from what we usually get. I wish this could happen because I think it would be a lot of fun and I'd love it personally. Which adaptation do you feel is portrayed perfectly? Now, I haven't read the books yet, but for me the answer to this would have to be Sherlock. Everything about that show just feels special. It's got its own iconic style, and I love that each episode is essentially its own film. Everyone involved just does a fantastic job. It's funny, because as much as I love Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock, he's probably my least favourite part, because Sherlock would be nothing without the other characters to bounce off. His interactions with Watson, Moriarty, Mycroft and Mrs. Hudson are what make that show as engaging as it is. For me though, it really is Martin Freeman as Watson that steals the show. The awkward, repressed emotion, the jubilation of the adventure, the frustration of having Sherlock as a friend, it all feels so genuine. His performance in The Reichenbach Fall is amazing, and the scene at the end where he's pouring his heart out is top notch in my opinion. If you could star in any adaptation, what would it be and who would you play? I actually found it quite difficult to answer this one, but after thinking about it for a while, I settled on The Switch by Beth O'Leary. I just feel that it'd make quite a good miniseries. Because you're following Lena and Eileen at the same time, it would always feel like something was happening. There wouldn't be any time for it to get boring. There'd be a mixture of heartfelt and comedic moments, and cinematically it'd be quite nice to get that contrast between the scenery of the Yorkshire Dales and London. I'd love to play Fitz, Lena's roommate. He's this earnest, goofy, slightly hopeless character. He befriends Eileen while she's staying in London, and before she leaves, she teaches him how to function. I just feel like I could do a good job as Fitz. I really liked him when I was reading the book, and I would much prefer to be a side character. When it comes to adaptations, what is your preferred medium? TV miniseries or film? Honestly, I think it's been made perfectly clear by my answers during this tag, but I much prefer the TV miniseries format. I feel like there's more room for experimentation. There's no set rule on how long a series or an episode needs to be. I enjoy the natural rhythm of a TV show, the rise and fall in the action, the natural jumping off points. You don't have to watch it all at once, but you can binge it if you want to. If you could change anything about a recent adaptation, what would it be? I think I'd want the Hobbit films tightening up. It makes me sad that they don't have the same magic for me as the Lord of the Rings trilogy does. The Hobbit really isn't a long book. I understand why they didn't feel that they could do it in one film, but they definitely could have tackled it in two. I don't see why they felt the need to pad it out. Get rid of that B-plot with the White Orc that's stalking Thorin. Is there an adaptation better than the source material? I wish that I had an answer for this, but I don't. I'm sure there is one out there, but personally I don't think I've ever come across one. The one thing that I do know is the Bones TV show and the Temperance Brennan books are completely different, and I think from what I've heard of the Temperance Brennan novels, I would prefer the Bones series. My question for today is this: if you could erase one, and only one, book to movie adaptation from existence so nobody remembers it, it was never made in the first place, what would it be and why? That's it for day 4. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, the like and subscribe buttons are just sitting there waiting to be pressed.
Now press them, or else.
Or else what?
You don't want to find out, mate.
If you want to get in touch, say hi and have a chat, you know where the comments section is, and the link to my Twitter is in the description. Thanks ever so much for spending time with me today, guys. Until tomorrow, take care. For now, I'm off. and you should have.
I got 'em.